Hey, I'm Ryan Reynolds. At Mint Mobile, we like to do the opposite of what Big Wireless does. They charge you a lot, we charge you a little. So naturally, when they announced they'd be raising their prices due to inflation, we decided to deflate our prices due to not hating you. That's right. We're cutting the price of Mint Unlimited from $30 a month to just $15 a month. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
Last month, Elana Pirtle-Guiney made history, becoming the president of Portland's first 12-member city council. She's going to be driving the conversation on a lot of big issues. Will they decide to support Mayor Keith Wilson's ambitious new plan to end unsheltered homelessness? And how are they going to deal with a staggering $100 million budget shortfall? Well, today on CityCast Portland, our host Claudia Meza is talking with President Pirtle-Guiney about the council's priorities, the challenges that they face ahead, and just how they plan to move Portland forward despite that financial crunch. It's Monday, February 3rd. I'm executive producer John Notarianni, and this is what Portland's talking about.
Thank you for making time for us. I know you're very busy. This is the first month?
It is. I think we're rounding out the end of week 4 right now, if you're counting calendar weeks.
And you technically have 2 new jobs.
City councilor and council president.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, I do.
Yeah. And when we saw you get elected as city council president, it was pretty dramatic. Like there were 8, 9 rounds of voting.
There were a number of rounds of voting. I do like to remind people, though, that day council voted on 5 things and 3 of them were unanimous on the first vote.
Oh, okay. You're just just so you know, it was pretty smooth sailing until we had to choose a leader.
It was.
It did make us wonder, if all those deadlocked votes, if it might lead to, I don't know, maybe there's some big differences in opinion on the council that just came out. People were just oh, is that how we think? Did you notice that? Was that something that was voiced?
I don't think quite like that. I actually think it's really interesting to talk about differences of opinion on council because a lot of folks like to assume that there are these deep partisan divides on council. And I don't think that there are. There are certainly differences of opinion on individual issues. And there are certainly differences of opinion on process and what access means, what it means to be accessible, what we should be doing in terms of how easy it should be to follow things because we have strict processes versus easier it is for people to get engaged in a more meaningful way because we have looser processes, right? Those are all really important questions where there are differences of opinion. Mm-hmm. But what I think is so cool about this council is that it's not like you have this group over here and a group over there. You have people who kind of move which group they're in and what that looks like and how big the majorities are or aren't, depending on the issue that we're talking about.
That's my follow-up, I suppose, is what major issues right now are really dividing the council, if you're able to speak freely? And also, just name a few people.
So,
and if you're mad at them.
I'm not mad at anyone yet.
But no, is there something that you're just yeah, we are having a problem here,
Not yet.
Well, not a problem, but, a discussion, Is there a major issue right now where people are really mulling something over?
I want to ask you to ask me that in a month because the most exciting thing, I think, for Portland that's happening right now is that we are getting committees up and running. And in the past, if you wanted to have something happen, you brought it to council and you had to wait because those agendas can get really backed up. And the whole council then debated it. We have the opportunity, because we have a bigger council, to have committees, which means we have the opportunity to have counselors really dig in and I don't want to say become experts, but spend their time on specific issues. And our first committees are going to start meeting the week of February 10th. And that's where we are going to start digging in on big policy issues in a way that we haven't really gotten to yet. These first couple of weeks have been about setup and tackling a few pressing things that couldn't wait. Right. But the big, meaty policy conversations that Portlanders, I think, asked for during the election are coming. So I think we will be surprised at how much commonality there is amongst counselors. I certainly also think there will be places of deep differences. I don't want to sugarcoat that or pretend it won't happen, but all of that will start to come out more, I would say, in the next 3 to 6 weeks.
Gotcha. Yeah, and we discussed on the show the 8 policy committees that are ranging anything from like transportation infrastructure to the seemingly super boring governance, which you're part of.
Yes.
It's the stuff that is necessary, the governance issues. When I saw those committees, I was like, wow, this is really ambitious, and how are they going to balance all of these goals with, Keith Wilson asking you to do, Mayor Keith Wilson. And I'm sure that you yourself might have, I don't know, a more pressing agenda. Let's just put it that way, because you have a lot of power to determine what goes on, in the council's meetings, like what kinds of policy the city is immediately passing. So I'm just wondering, like, what is at the top of your policy agenda?
Well, first of all, I, as council president with that hat on, am going to push as many things as we can to committees. There will be times where we need to move something so quickly that it stays within council, but I'd really like to allow our committees to do their work and not end run that process. I think that's really important for setting the culture for this new city council. I will certainly, taking off my council president hat and putting on my District 2 counselor hat, have some issues that I bring forward. Probably not in the first couple of months because I'm still pretty focused on setup and things that will come before the governance committee and getting our body up and running. But when I sat down with the chairs from our committee that is focused on the environment and planning and open space, I told them, I talked about some sustainability issues during the campaign that I am sure I will be bringing your way 6 months from now. I am excited to be sitting on the finance committee and have the opportunity to really dig in on some of the budget conversations that we'll be having.
Right. I want to get into some of these policies, and also I don't know if you know this, but you're my rep.
Fantastic. What part of District 2 are you in?
I'm in St. John's. So I have a lot of
Awesome.
concerns with it smelling like burnt oil pretty much every day. But we can discuss that later. What I really wanted to dig in was, you're saying like, oh, I have this president hat and then I have like my regular city council hat. What do these two hats look like?
Oh, the District 2 counselor hat. Let's start with that one. Looks like I was in district last night at a budget forum with some of the folks from the administrative side of the city talking about what the budget process will look like. And I was at a forum the night before that City Club put on with my fellow District 2 counselors talking about what matters for District 2 and what we want to tackle together on City Council for the district. It looks like hearing from folks in District 2 about concerns that they have, the smell of oil. I've heard that one from a few people. The pools, I hear a lot about our parks and our pools. I am a parent. I have 2 kids. That is something that I deeply relate to. So it means hearing about those issues and then going to the bureau director for the Parks and Recreation Bureau and saying, hey, I need to know more about why you're making these decisions and what we can do differently, better, or if we can't do something differently, how I justify that to the folks who live in District 2.
I see that as a baseball cap.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. You're just out there with the people, Mariners cap, I'm assuming. I don't know.
I'll take it, though. I come from a Giants family and I'm married to a Red Sox fan.
Oh, neither. Denied. You cannot say this on this show as I'm wearing my Dodgers cap, but it's okay.
Oh, I hadn't even noticed that with the headphones
Giants?
on. Okay.
Oh, get out of here. All right.
Well, we're going to have a problem and I'm not sure what to do about that, Claudia.
Oh my God. You're going to put in more oil in St. John's is what I'm hearing.
No, I'm not. We can get along when it comes to
fine.
St. John's, just not when it comes to California baseball teams.
God, are we going to get that pool? Did I screw all of St. John's? All right. Sorry.
But sometimes I take off I hate the Dodgers cap.
Okay.
We're getting controversial now. I think my staff are going to run in at some point.
They're just like, you need to stop talking.
Sometimes I take that hat off and I put on my council president hat. And that is where I spend a lot of time thinking about Oh my goodness. How do policies move through committees and to council? And how do we make sure that committees are meeting at a consistent time so that if what you really care about at the city is transportation issues, you know exactly when the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee will be meeting every week and what that's going to look like? And how do we make sure that all of the conversations that counselors are starting to have and the things that they care about are getting the right amount of airtime and attention within council? And how do we make sure that we hear from every service area about the right programs so that Portlanders and city councilors have that common understanding of what's already happening as we work to make sure that things happen better?
Yeah, that's great because I think that was a big deal with the previous form of government is that nobody knew what was happening.
Mhm.
And you hear something and you're just like, well, what's going on? And then it was sad actually because the commissioners were working hard and you would rarely hear their successes.
Exactly.
Just because nobody was following anything.
And we want that to change. And that's one of the things I think about actually with both hats on. Sometimes I layer the hats and I think about that as a District 2 counselor and also as the council president.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Upgrade your business with Shopify, home of the #1 checkout on the planet. Shop Pay boosts conversions up to 50%, meaning fewer carts going abandoned and more sales going cha-ching. So if you're into growing your business, get a commerce platform that's ready to sell wherever your customers are. Visit shopify.com to upgrade your selling today.
Don't miss out on the final football game of the season with Prize Picks. Join now because Prize Picks are giving away a free pick for the big game where 1 yard equals 1 win. Just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. Download the Prize Picks app and use code FIELD and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code FIELD on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks. Run your game. Must be present in certain states. Visit prizepicks.com for restrictions and details.
Well, one of the big first pieces of business that I know you and the rest of the counselors have to consider is Mayor Wilson's massive plan to end unsheltered homelessness. By the way, Mayor Wilson is a Mets fan, and we will forgive him. So you sat through a 3-hour work session where he presented his vision and your fellow council members asked questions. As it's presented so far, like what do you think's working in that plan and what parts of it do you think still needs work?
So if you go back and listen to the 3-hour conversation, you'll hear that counselors were very supportive, but also had a lot of questions about the technical details. How do we make sure that this is not that this is not displacing programs that we already have that are working?
Mm-hmm.
How do we make sure that this is a plan that provides an additional type of shelter? Because we know that different people need different levels of services and types of shelters to successfully move into stable permanent housing. How do we make sure that we are serving everybody effectively? And where is the money coming from to do this? Right? Those are all questions that my fellow counselors asked when we heard that presentation. And I think in general, what you'll see is that counselors are very interested in digging in. We all heard during the fall about how unsheltered homelessness looks in each of our districts. And we also all heard from folks who had been homeless and what services they needed. And we want to work with the mayor to continue to chip away at this issue. We want to work with the mayor to continue to help folks move into permanent, long-term, stable housing. And shelter is an important step along the way to getting there.
Well, the council is facing an unprecedented budget deficit. It was recently estimated at $100 million. Now, I know it's pretty early on and you're still assessing, but what are a few specific areas that, you and your team are considering cuts in?
Mm-hmm.
And also, what are a few areas that, you and your fellow counselors will put up a fight in cuts? You're just like, no, don't touch this section.
Well, what I can tell you is when we will be able to have answers to those questions.
Okay.
So at the end of February, we will receive the first look at what the administration, so the folks who work in the bureaus and the service areas, have put together in terms of options for cuts. We haven't seen those lists yet, but at the end of February, we should have those lists from all of the bureaus and the service areas about what the options are. At that point, the mayor starts developing his proposed budget. Council ultimately passes the final budget. And what we have committed to is running a process alongside the mayor's process so that by the time we get the mayor's proposed budget, we have a pretty good sense of what cuts council is not willing to take, what cuts council certainly doesn't want to take, but understanding how deep this budget cut is prepared to take on. So those are conversations that I suspect will start late February, early March.
Okay. We will be following up.
Perfect. Do you know why the Mets colors are orange and blue?
Yeah, because of the Giants and the Dodgers.
Yes.
Oh my God, is this a unity?
I think it is.
Is this a call for unity?
I think it is.
Finally, well, another thing that's come up is there's a big chunk of this upcoming deficit is the cost of the new staff that you and colleagues just added for yourselves and the mayor. You know, like, I'm not here to tell you what you could spend your money, the money we don't have on and, whatever. But I'm just like, as somebody who they're just going to be like, why was that necessary? We don't even have any money. And also, basically, you guys on your first day essentially had to fix the charter. So are you saying the charter was dumb? Is that what you're saying?
Not at all. I'm saying that the past administration did not set us up to be able to implement the charter. So the charter asks the new city council to do a couple of different things. We are supposed to do constituent services, work with you. And that means that I need to be accessible to you if you have a pothole outside of your house or the smell of oil permeating the air outside of your house every day. Which means that I either need to personally have time or have a fantastic staff person with time to meet with you. I also need to do the policy work of the city, which means I have to have time to really engage in those committees in a meaningful way. Make sure that I can do the research or have staff who can do the research to understand the issues that we're bringing forward and what the options are and how to bring forward the best possible policies. And I have to hold bureaus accountable, which is a piece that our old form of government didn't do very well. Making sure that once we ask a bureau to do something, they're actually doing it effectively and in a way that is serving Portlanders. And that will look primarily like oversight hearings within our committees to ask a lot of questions about how things are going. And I can do a lot in a day, but I can't do all of that in a day with one chief of staff and a third of a scheduler. So one of the first things that we did is we as a council looked back at the recommendations from the transition team within city government and from the GTAC, which was that advisory body that helped to move us from the charter to the transition that was made up of Portlanders who put in so many hours. Let me use this as an opportunity to say thank you to everybody who was a part of that process to try to make this system work well. And all of their recommendations were at least 2 and up to 4 or more staff per counselor. We were not set up to be successful in this work, and we want to be successful in this work. So what we did is we said, we need to add another staff person. We need to give ourselves the tools. We need to give ourselves a budget to get in-district offices for districts that would like to have a footprint in our district to be able to be more accessible to Portlanders. I see this really as the next step on the work that the transition team said was necessary.
Yeah. Well, keeping the budget deficit in mind, are you at all having to change your vision of what's possible this year? Like your own game plan? Because I'm sure you came in with big ideas of what you want to accomplish this year. But you were just given this, negative bank account.
I think we're all coming face to face with that. And I suspected this might happen. So personally, wearing my District 2 hat, I didn't make a lot of promises for big programs during my campaign. But wearing my council president hat, I know that a lot of my colleagues did. And I also know that there's a lot of work we need to do, whether I promise to do it quickly or not. One of the things that happened under the past administration is that they bought up a lot of programs that we really need to continue running with one-time or short-term funds, things like the ARPA dollars that we got from the federal government. And those are all expiring now. and we are not expecting those to get replaced. So a big chunk of this budget hole that we have is the ending of one-time or short-term funds that were used to buy what ended up being ongoing long-term programs. And the first thing we have to do is figure out what to do there and what to do about those programs that now Portlanders have come to rely on.
Yeah. Well, this is less of a policy question and more of a concerned citizen one. Part of the pitch of this new 12-person council was that we were going to see, finally, actual representation by districts. And there's 3 of you in each district. So when I first heard, hey, we need more staff, I'm like, there's 3 of you. One of you do staff stuff. I don't know. Really, I'm just like, when will more regional, District 2 needs this policy work or conversations happen? Not just District 2, I mean District 3, District 4, because I know we're united for Portland, but we smell like burnt oil.
Some of that is already happening. And I suspect as these committees get set up, you'll see more of that happening. So bring Councillor Canal and Ryan in District 2. For your listeners in the rest of the city, you have fantastic councillors also. I'm sorry, you're just stuck with 2 people in a conversation from the same district right now.
Our listeners are used to North Portland. They're just like, can you literally talk about anything but North Portland? And we're just like, I don't know, man. It's going to be hard.
So bring your concerns to your councillors. I know that some of my fellow councillors are already having town halls. Others are planning a little further out for joint events. But bring us your concerns because we're starting committee work and we can bring policies to committees, even committees we're not on. I can bring a policy to any committee, even if I don't sit on that committee. So if you have concerns, don't feel constrained by the committees that your councillors sit on. Bring them your ideas, bring them your concerns, have that conversation. We're ready to get to work.
Well, I really appreciate your time, but we usually ask the most important question at the end.
And it's not what baseball team I like? I thought that was the most important question.
Okay, no, here's the most important. I don't know if you followed the reporting on one of the longest meetings that you've had so far, which was when you were elected. A lot of the reporters, because they were so hungry themselves, just focused on what you guys were eating as snacks. Kind of looking at you all in a very jealous manner. We heard about Eric Zimmerman's homemade lasagna, which he literally wrote in and was just like, it was homemade. I just need you guys to know that it was homemade. And so now we're wondering, what are your dinner plans for those long 6 p.m.? Because it happens once a month, right? Everyone's invited, Parks and Rec style. I'm talking about the TV show meetings where everyone comes in and.
I have not made dinner plans yet, but I do have a snack drawer in my office, and I will always have peanut butter pretzels and trail mix in my office.
Your mouth is going to get so dry.
There's tea also.
Okay,
There's also tea.
I'm like,
come on by, have some peanut butter pretzels. It'll be great.
You know that I immediately was like, you need saliva. You're my rep here. Can't be coughing your way through this meeting. Okay, that's awesome. I love it. Thank you so much for your time and for, your service. We're all rooting for you.
Thank you so much. It's great to be on the show. I can't wait to come back.
Well, that's all for today here on CityCast Portland. Thanks so much for listening. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more from around the city. Until then, see you at Slim's.